What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Drew Code Sports Talk. I am your host, Cody Johnson. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are live on YouTube right now, coming at you with a brand new episode right now. NBA playoffs are going on right now. We just had the NFL draft that just passed this past weekend. We have so much to talk about. Before we get started, do me a favor. Please go like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, if you're listening to us on your audio platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you listen to us, go ahead and give us a follow on there as well. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, wherever you have social media. Drew Code Sports Talk is there. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. I have an exciting episode for you guys. I have so much stuff that we are going to be dialing up, talking about obviously the Lakers, talking about right now the Warriors. Game's not quite over yet, but as we're recording this live, kind of watching it right now. Obviously, going to be talking about some draft commentary. Obviously, my Raiders, I thought, had a good draft. A lot of other teams, too, had some phenomenal drafts as well. So it's going to be a very interesting kind of conversation that we navigate through. But I really appreciate everyone for coming in. But I'm not alone today, you guys. Obviously, as you guys can see, there's no Drew this week. He is mid-deep right now in school, family, and life, of course. So he sends his wishes, and we're obviously going to make this the best podcast that he's ever listened to. But I did call in the big guns because, again, we're talking NBA playoffs. So, of course, I had to hit up my boy Jason from Three From Deep. It's got the NBA podcast on the Boom Broadcast Network. If you guys are not subscribed to Boom Broadcast, you guys need to get subscribed right now. They have so much content going on. They have NFL, college hoops and football. They have NBA, Three From Deep. They have entertainment, wrestling, you name it, they have it. So I'm going to bring in my buddy, Jason Colenso from Way of New York. Welcome, my friend. How you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me tonight, Cody. I am having a great time watching a lot of great sports this month. So excited to be here and talk about it with you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you joining me. I know that this was works. It's been in the works for a couple of weeks now. Of course, schedules and life get in the way, but you and I had a couple of live streams that we were on together. One of them was the NFL draft that we did with the boys at the Boom Broadcast Network. So that was a ton of fun. And we obviously got to see whose internet connection is worthwhile and not. So that was a lot of fun. But man, you always come on my show all suited up, and I'm just lazy right now in a plain tee, man. I appreciate you dressing up for the occasion.
No worries, man. You know me, I'm always dressed to impress. So I just appreciate being on here. So I respect the show. I respect you. So I can't come in on here looking like no slouch. So just got to be suited and booted at all times. Appreciate
always ready to go, Jason. All right.
Yes,
so
sir.
Before we kind of dive into the notes that we've kind of been working on, I'm just curious, so far with the NBA playoffs, what has been your initial reaction? Because earlier this season, obviously we had a lot of debates about, NBA is the lackluster of it kind of fallen off, popularity of it. And now post Luka trade, where you can say it's kind of kicked up a little bit, but these playoffs have felt a little different. So from your perspective, what has been your excitement level? What has been your opinions of this playoffs and the series that we've had so far?
Well, my excitement level is up there. We are seeing some unbelievable basketball. We're seeing some great games. There's still a ton of superstars out. Super awesome basketball right now. I am enjoying these playoffs. You had your one seeds that were pretty much dominant, but other than that, every other series right now has been a challenge. So pretty excited about it. Man, like I said, and it's not over yet. We still got a lot of basketball to go. We are only, we're starting off. Tomorrow is May. So we still got literally like a month of basketball playoffs left to go too before we even get to the finals. So this is very entertaining. The NBA is succeeding too. They're seeing a lot of bumps in viewership. So I know eyeballs on the screen. So something good is happening, and it's showing it right now because there are a lot of eyeballs watching right now. So we are seeing some great games, buzzer beaters, unbelievable play, superstars in the making. And I do love this time of year because that's when you start seeing guys you kind of don't really know, or you only know a little bit about, all of a sudden kind of break through. So, dude, through the moon excited. This has been a great playoff so far.
I dig it, man. I appreciate that. So, okay, we're going to kick it off here with the first series. I think the one that we probably both called when we both did our, I did your show actually before the playoffs even started. We went through seed by seed, and I think you and I pretty much had a consensus on this one when it came to, the 1 seed Thunder going against the 8th seed. At the time, we didn't know it was going to be the Grizzlies, but we both predicted the Grizzlies. So, now that all the dust has settled, obviously, as what everyone knows, the Thunder swept the Grizzlies. Ja Morant, of course, had, went through his deal and whatnot. But I'm just curious, now that obviously the Grizzlies have let go of their coach, they've still got a Ja Morant. I don't know if it's a problem, but he's on the team. You have Jaren Jackson Jr., who, do you build around him? But, now that the Thunder have swept the Grizzlies, should the Grizzlies look to trade one of these players, or do they keep building around these two?
If it were me, Ja would be the piece I would trade. Look, he has kind of shown his true colors towards the end of the season, which is disappointing. Ever since they fired their coach 3 weeks ago, it was substitute teacher time. He just started acting a fool again with the grenades and the acting up. Kind of invisible in the playoffs, although I do know he got hurt in some of those games there, so it was definitely an uphill battle for him. But I love Jaren Jackson Jr. He is a defensive star. He scores the basketball. He's a double-double guy every night. I was really impressed with Scottie Pippen Jr. in the way that he stepped up in these playoffs and has really made a name for himself for these Grizzlies. So I would use those guys and keep them. Ja is going to be a piece. He's not a guy you want to give a max contract to. Look, the Mavericks had a problem signing Luka to a max contract, and Luka nearly did not have the problems on and off court that Ja Morant has. So right now, Ja Morant, the best chance you have, Grizzlies, is trade him away, get some pieces, get some draft capital, and let's start anew. He's the guy you're going to be able to get something for and build around Jaren Jackson Jr., build around a lot of the other. You got Desmond Bane, again, Scottie Pippen Jr. making a name for himself. So you have some pieces there that you can bring somebody in and pair and be productive and have a great team. Ja Morant, unfortunately, I love him too. And it drives me nuts because he's probably one of the most electric basketball players on the court. He flies all over the place, reckless abandon. But that's why he gets hurt a lot, because he doesn't kind of reel that kind of stuff in. He talked about, I'm not going to dunk anymore this year at the beginning of the year or whatever it was. But you still saw him flying around, and all that flying around got him ultimately injured. He's not the guy you're going to give the max contract to because you have to worry about him. And as you saw with the Luka trade, teams don't want to have to worry about their star players. These max mega deals that they're almost guaranteed now, that's a huge thing for these NBA GMs to deal with. So trade Ja away. You get some pieces. You pair them up with Jackson Jr. and Scottie Pippen Jr., Desmond Bane. You get those guys, and you move forward. Ja is not the answer there in Memphis, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think what's tough about this is because, look, Ja, when he was, drafted in the same draft class as Zion Williamson, he went 2nd overall. Zion went 1, of course. Ja clearly looked like the player in that draft that was going to have the most success. And I think we can agree to this too, is like when the Grizzlies had him, obviously the building steps that they had with that team, they were ferocious, talked a lot of, they wanted all the smoke, so to speak. They wanted to climb up that chimney and wanted it from everybody. But yet each time they got into the playoffs, they just seemed to let everybody down. And I think what's difficult is I think people would have forgiven that if Ja's antics off the court hadn't cost them, playoff positioning, games. Ja now with, his antics, have been something that has been now in the media and been a focus rather than the team. And I guess I would agree that maybe the discussion of should we remove ourselves from Ja is on the table, just because when he's up for whatever max contract extension, do you want to put, 200 and something million on a guy that his availability is in question? I'm not even going to say injury. He has been injured for sure, but I think his availability is hinged on his behavior with the league, and the league's already put him on notice. Like, hey, look, we'll give you a warning. Please don't do any of that. And yet he's still kind of towing the line on that. So I don't know if I'm ready to say they're going to get rid of him because they just got rid of Taylor Jenkins to satisfy Ja Morant. So we'll see what the other coach is. But I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing rumblings about Ja's on the trading table or whatnot, because there's going to be a ton of other players post this playoff season, essentially, where other teams are going to make it known that they're willing to deal with the Grizzlies, or maybe the Grizzlies are willing to get out of whatever cap restrictions that they have, because not going to be able to keep both Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant. Now, one of the things I would question is Jaren Jackson Jr. a really good second option to pair with an alpha, or can he be the guy that you build around his team? Because he's a big, he can shoot threes. For all intents and purposes, there are some years where he could be defensive player of the year, but can you just plug in a guy next to him and he can lead the charge, or does he need to be a Robin to someone's Batman? I think is my biggest question depending on who you're going to decide who you want to keep. But for the Grizzlies, if they don't kind of figure out their coaching situation and the direction they want to move with the team as a whole, I wouldn't be surprised if both guys are on the table. Best deal gets it, and we'll see where the rest of it goes.
Right. And to me, I would keep Jackson Jr. I mean, he's not the guy. I mean, he's a superstar. He's a, upper level player, but he's not one that moves the needle. He will win you games and he will get you production, which is value in the NBA right now, because these contracts in the NBA, even your mid-level guys make a lot of money with the $30-40 million a year. So he's going to make a lot of money, but he's going to give you production, and he has great availability. He has been there. So he's someone you can count on. So if you bring in somebody that you can pair with him that is either a superstar or a 1A, 1B kind of same level, you get more value, because then you're not paying as much. Now you're getting 2 for 1. Instead of paying for one Ja, you can get 2 or 3 guys that can give you more production, and you're getting more value. That's why I think just get out from under Ja, because you're not going to pay him $300 million in a mega max deal, because you just don't know if he's going to be there. And you don't know if his mentally is going to be there. It's one thing if you have antics and you can back it up on the court, right, and you're available and you're winning games. If he was still in the playoffs and winning games, the Memphis Grizzlies, I don't care. Do grenade, do whatever you want to do. But when you're not winning games or you're not out there on the court, the antics, they get a little much, and your team has a shorter leash on you, because it's all about winning, baby. And if you don't win, you're not making money.
That's true. All right, moving on to the next series. So this game is currently going on live right now. So we're talking Warriors and Rockets. And for those that don't know, I'm on the West Coast. Poor Jason's over on the East Coast. He's toughing it out right now. This game won't end. I mean, there's still a few minutes left in the game. Rockets let the lead slip to 12 at one point in the fourth. Now they're up by 17 again. So we're just waiting for this thing to end. But for all intents and purposes, by the time you guys either listen to this or finish watching this episode, the Rockets will be down 2-3. Warriors up 3-2, and it should be heading back to Golden State for a game 6. I believe it's going to be on Friday, maybe give or take a couple of days. I could be off on that. But anyways,
it's one day Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. So then a couple of interesting things I do want to bring up, Jason, because obviously game 3 and 4 passed, game 5 now is just about over. So this is what's transpired in this series. And it's kind of been a shocking one, I think, for both you and I. I know that on your side of it, I think you picked the Rockets. I had picked the Warriors, but I think the way that this series is playing out has been very just interesting in general, because both game 1 and 2, it's kind of swayed one way or the other. And then obviously Jimmy Butler, he was injured in game 3. So for all intents and purposes, that's where the Rockets could have, captured the series. No, Steph Curry, the greatest point guard of all time, some would argue, stole game 3 from the Warriors, from the Rockets. Right. Game 4, you can say maybe that was a defensive game from Draymond Green, who defensive presence in game 4 helped that game. Game 5 now has been essentially to the Rockets. It came out firing, desperation, of course. But, what I guess I'm curious is, let's assume the Warriors get past the Rockets. We have 2 games to go in theory, so who knows? But let's assume the Rockets get past the Warriors. Jason, do you think, the Warriors get past the Rockets. Jason, do you think the West should be worried about the Warriors later on down the series?
From what I'm seeing right now from Golden State, the inconsistencies that they have, I would not be worried at all if I was the West. I mean, they can catch fire a game, and that has shown in this Rocket series, being that they are a little younger, a little disappointed in the way Jalen Green's been going. But the Golden State Warriors right now live and die by Steph Curry. When he's off, that whole team is off.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Butler doesn't look like himself. I know he's back and playing in this game against the Rockets. This game, he has not looked good. So I don't know how healthy he is. So I would not be worried about Golden State right now. Draymond Green is still a person on the court that dictates a lot of things as far as defensively and hustle, but he doesn't give you a ton of points.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to drop 30 on you all of a sudden. So essentially you have Steph Curry, you have an injured Jimmy Butler, and then you got a bunch of role players. Buddy Hield, you may get 17 to 20 point Buddy Hield one game, and then you may get 2-point Buddy Hield in the next game. Podzinski, he's been hurt. He's kind of inconsistent. So, I mean, you have a lot of players on that team that are very inconsistent, and it's showing right now in the games that the Warriors have lost because they're just not a deep team. If Steph Curry doesn't get you 30 to 40 and jump out into a lead, it's hard for them to come back. So, no, I'm not worried about the Warriors. In fact, I'm still worried about the Warriors even getting out of this series right now because they are just not deep. Jimmy Butler does not look like playoff Jimmy this last game. So, worried about his health. So, no, Warriors, I'm sorry. It's time to pack it up.
I think the thing that's happening to me in this series, and Jason, I'll give you a follow-up on this one. Even though the Warriors are up by a game, and to be truthful, before this game was played, it was a 3-1 lead. So now it's 3-2. So still the favor goes to the Warriors.
Right.
Why do you think this series has gotten to where the Warriors have gotten to 3 games already compared to the Rockets? What do you think is the main reason behind that?
Well, that game that they stole, where it was a kind of a possession, I think a lot of it is the youth of the Rockets. You look at Amen Thompson, you look at Jalen Green, those guys are superstars in the making. They are the reason why the Rockets play well. When they are on and Jalen Green is on, those Rockets are almost unbeatable. They have Van Vliet on there. They got Dylan Brooks. So they have a veteran presence, but the needle moves with those younger guys. And sometimes in the playoffs, where a moment gets too big, if you have never been there before and you've never been in that environment, it's a lot to kind of deal with. So that's why Golden State has stolen some games from the Rockets, because you've seen some inconsistency in Jalen Green's game. He drops 38 one game, they win, and then goes out and drops 9. This last game, I think he had 11 or 12. He didn't need to score, and I think he got injured a little bit. But the depth of the Rockets right now is what's going to help them. And the Van Vliet, Dylan Brooks, these guys have veteran presence. Van Vliet championship presence, won a chip with the Raptors. So I think with that really motivating Jalen Green and Amen Thompson, you're going to see, I think, a better Rockets team. And I think they're just going to outlast Golden State. I think Golden State is literally running out of gas. You got Jimmy Butler, who's not a spring chicken. Steph Curry, 37 years old. Draymond Green, he's older too. So I think, the Warriors came out fighting the first few games and had all that energy. I think that energy is zapped and they're kind of running out of gas. So now the younger team is bubbling up now and they're getting a little more confidence in them. So this is an interesting series, but I still think the Rockets are going to outlast Golden State.
Wow. So you think that the Warriors will drop the next 2 games?
Yes.
That's essentially what the Rockets need. They need to win game 6 in Golden State. Then the 7th game would go back to Houston. So you think Houston can take a game in Golden State and go back in and get past the Warriors in Game 7?
With the health and the youth and the experience of that team, the Rockets have the firepower, have the potential star power in Jalen Green and Amen Thompson to turn around and win this series. And don't forget, they got Sengun too, who is their all-star, who kind of goes underrated too, dropped 30 the other night too. So you still got him to deal with. Also, they have multiple players that can go off on you. Who does Golden State have? They got injured Jimmy Butler and aging Steph Curry. Other than that, I don't see anybody else dropping 30 on you.
Yeah, I mean, that's really true. So I think the reason why I'm still siding with the Warriors is because at this point in time, the Warriors, because they stole Game 3, they actually are in control of home court advantage at this moment, because the Rockets still have to go to San Francisco, Golden State, and they got to take one from the Warriors. And the Warriors are very hard to play at home, regardless of how you feel about their size. That atmosphere is electric. I've been to a couple of games. It is like another world over there. Like, that energy is very, very contagious, and it doesn't take very many threes to get that crowd lit up. And also, I think what would help too is because, yes, this Houston Rockets team is young. I would argue that they're the more aggressor on the defensive side, which is what I think will happen is they'll get themselves into foul trouble early. And so, like Sengun, I think he's going to get into foul trouble. He fouled out in this game, ironically enough. He didn't finish the game. He fouled out. But still, though, the game finally went final. Rockets 131, Golden State 116. But Sengun was fouled out in this game. And, you know, for the most part, Steve Kerr pulled these starters in like the third quarter. So this game was pretty much wrapped from there. But I think when they go back to, obviously, Golden State's home court, there's going to be that sense of urgency to let's close it out. Let's stay home to rest rather than, okay, we win it on the road, we're going to travel back home, a little bit more hostile. I think Golden State, Jimmy Buckets, I think that they will actually come into form. They're going to put away this young team. And again, it's not that the Houston Rockets don't deserve to be in this series with the Warriors. What my argument was on your show when we first had this conversation was exactly your point. The experience of this Warriors team is kind of what's the difference maker in this series. And I give you the youth for the Rockets. I give you the energy that they may have, but I think it just goes to show the Warriors, they're 5-time champions in the last decade, been to X amount of playoff series. They've seen this song and dance before. It's who is the most strategic coach. I still trust Steve Kerr over Indoko. So I just think that some things just fall to the Warriors, even though roster-wise, the Warriors don't have anyone taller 6'10" to guard anybody. So, you know, really a team with size is going to overpower them. Like, the next team that they have to go against is either going to be the Timberwolves or the Lakers. That's the next series. I mean, I don't know if the Warriors survive that series, but if it is the Timberwolves, which we'll talk about later on the show, I don't like their chances much more than a few percentage points, if I'm being honest. I think the kryptonite to the Warriors could be the Timberwolves if they see them in the next series. So I think experience is what's dominating this. And I just think in game 6, Steph Curry is going to come alive from 3. Jimmy Buckets is going to be a two-way player like he is. Draymond Green is going to be the difference maker on the defensive side. And I think we will probably be looking ahead the next time we're on one another show is, okay, Warriors and XYZ matchup. Who do we see? Because I'm kind of in the same camp as you with the Warriors. I don't know if the West should be scared of the Warriors because the Warriors seem like they're getting by the skin of their teeth.
Right.
And at some point it's not going to work anymore, because I don't think it's going to work against the Timberwolves. I don't think it'll work against the Lakers. I don't think it'll work against the Thunder if they meet them in the finals, you know?
Right.
So
well, I got a couple of things. Yes, it's great to have home court advantage. Yes, Golden State gets loud, but if the Rockets get up like they did in this game, silence can be deafening. So if the Rockets end up coming in there and knocking those Golden State Warriors down and are up by 10, 15, and that building gets quiet, that's going to be very loud. And again, they only have one day for travel. They're off tomorrow, and then they play Friday night. So Is that older team going to be well rested? Is Jimmy Butler going to be better in that game Friday night? Is he going to be a little more healthy?
Mhm.
Or is this just not enough time and they're just not going to be healthy enough? So I got some questions in that game, and I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think that first quarter is going to be vital to see who's going to win that game on Friday night.
Well, we're going to move on to a different series, but I do want to make this point. You mentioned it about, travel and all that stuff, wear and tear in the minutes. I do want to point this out. So like we said to start this segment, the Warriors, Steve Kerr kind of pulled the starters at about the third quarter. So no starters played essentially from, I think it was like the 8-minute mark of the third quarter on the rest of the game. So Draymond Green only played 18 minutes. Buckets only played 25. Curry only played 23. Buddy Hield played 18. Technically, he started, but he did finish the game. I think they threw him in there because of potential late run. And then Perminsky, he had 21. So essentially, the starters did not play more than 25 minutes, but from anybody. So that's a lot of time that they still got to rest to recover. Travel time, sure, but that's a lot different than like the Rockets. Thompson played 35 minutes. Brooks, 29. Sagan, even though he fouled out, 31 minutes. Van Fleet, 33 minutes.
They're young bucks. They're all right.
I'm just saying, if we're talking about travel and nutrition and we're talking about all that, I agree. But I think if we're talking about experience here, maybe this is the difference. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. We'll find out. We'll revisit this topic depending on who moves on to the next round. So,
yes, sir.
All right. So I am going to kind of jump us up a little bit because the Lakers and the Timberwolves are playing right now. And as I'm watching this right now, we are 2 minutes into the first quarter. Lakers are already down 6-1. So we're off to a hot start. But I do want to start with this. So obviously Timberwolves are up 3-1. I'll speak as a Lakers fan. This is a shock to me. I thought that they would put up more of a fight. And I think what was tough to watch is in game 4, of course, we saw the Timberwolves down by double digits in the fourth quarter, storm back. And the way that they stormed back was just a sight to behold. And Anthony Edwards put this team on his shoulders. Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels, they locked it down. They did great. So this question is going to hurt as I ask you, Jason, because you're not a Lakers fan and I am.
Just take a deep breath. It's okay. You'll be all right.
Yeah. It's easy for you to say you're on the other side of this 3-2 up series, and we'll talk about the Knicks in a minute. But okay, in terms of Lakers, okay, and as everyone knows, I think everybody in the afterlife also knows, Luka got traded to the Lakers. Breaking news if you haven't heard. So if the Lakers get eliminated in round 1 as the 3 seed after trading for Luka, do you think that this season would be as big or a bigger disappointment than the Mavs not making the play-in after making this trade?
Do you want the official answer, or do you want the ESPN, TNT, NBA podcast? Everybody's going to lose their freaking mind when the Lakers get bounced in the first round. Stephen A. Smith's head's going to explode. They're going to beat the Lakers up. It was, let's fire JJ Redick because he can't coach. It's going to be doom and gloom for the Lakers. Listen, the Lakers have
on 3 from deep say.
The Lakers have some glaring issues on that team. Of course, center position, size. They're missing some other role players. They do have a coach that is inexperienced. Didn't have one sub in the last game, which he's kind of getting beat up for, that he didn't make any moves or any adjustments. So they have some things that they need to work on, but I think they've exceeded expectations. You got a 40-plus-year-old LeBron James. You got a Luka Doncic who, in the beginning of this season, was not prepared for the season, and then now you just throw him in the spotlight kind of midway through the season and go, here, be on the Lakers and go win a chip. That's a tall task for anybody. So for them to do what they've done to get this far, I still think it's a good season for the Lakers. They have a lot to be proud of. They have a lot to build on, and they're going to use this moving into next year. But the doom and gloom is going to come because it's the Los Angeles Lakers. They move the needle. So you're going to see everybody just blow them up. They're going to lose it. They're going to throw Luka under the bus. They're going to throw LeBron under the bus. JJ Redick. They're going to blame everybody under the sun. It's going to be a whole week full of what do the Lakers do now? Oh my God. So look at the Lakers. You had a good season. The West is a gauntlet to get through. So to even make the playoffs the way they did and get into the seed where they did, and you're going up against a high-quality team. You're not going against a scrub team or a play-in team. It's not like they're losing against the Memphis Grizzlies or somebody. Mm-hmm. You're not losing against a slouch team. You're going against a team that made it pretty far in the playoffs last year. You're playing against Anthony Edwards, who is probably right now considered in the top 5 best players in the NBA right now. You have a total team package there. They have a lot of length. They have a lot of height. Naz Reid is unbelievable and playing unbelievable basketball. That fourth quarter, the last game where I think he made eight shots in a row and was just, he has played some unbelievable basketball. You still got Rudy Gobert, the Stifle Tower there down low. So it's not like the Lakers are losing against a bunch of scrubs and they're like, well, why are you losing against these guys? So, but it's the Los Angeles Lakers. Everything they do is scrutinized and is under a microscope. So even if they win this series, they would still be scrutinized and they would still be under a microscope and they would say, oh, you won because of and they would make excuses and it would be this drama and they would bring up all this stuff. So, look, as a Lakers fan, I would be excited that you've made the playoffs. You're going against, you've hit the wall because you're going against Anthony Edwards, who's playing out of his mind. He's blacking out.
Yeah.
And you have something to look forward for in the future. Yes, you don't know what's going to go on with LeBron. You have some pieces you got to fill. But you got freaking Luka Doncic for literally a bag of chips and a soda. So just be happy with something for once as a Lakers fan. And it's not going to be a championship every year. Any team in the world right now would die to say, well, we got Luka. I don't care if we lose in the playoffs this year. We're moving forward with Luka. So as a Lakers fan, you have a lot to be happy about. You're going against a tough squad, dude. It's a tall task when you don't have the personnel. But knowing the Lakers, they're going to go out next year. They're going to try to build around Luka, and they're going to bring together a team that's going to fit with him. Because you got to remember, they brought Luka in to fit with a team that really wasn't built around him. It was built around AD and LeBron James. So now you're putting in a completely different piece to this puzzle. And now you have to bring some pieces that are going to play well with him. You got free agents next year. Kyrie Irving, he's floating around out there. Does he want to come and play with his boy? So now you're bringing a Kyrie Irving. I mean, so there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving. Ja Morant might be out there. So, I mean, you put Ja Morant and them together. I mean,
in LA, I don't know, man.
Well, you put Ja Morant anywhere. I mean, unless you're going to put him in Nome, Alaska, where he can't do anything. You put Ja Morant in South Beach, he's going to lose his mind.
You can put him in Toronto. He might be pretty good there.
No, Toronto's a pretty happening city, dude. No, he's got Drake up there too. So now he'd probably whatever. He'd some stuff up there. But maybe. As a Lakers fan, dude, be happy you made it this far. Be happy you got Luka Doncic, and then look at next year.
Well, here's the thing. I think the way that we're losing is bothering me. If we were like coming down the pike of like, okay, potential game 7, we're right in there. But these are like glaring, like we're being bullied. We're being absolutely like, I don't want to say demolished, but like in game 4 where we lost the lead in the fourth quarter And we just got outplayed physically. We couldn't get the ball past half court before Luka picked up his dribble or Austin Reeves. Like the Timberwolves defense,
it's JV varsity, dude. It's JV varsity. You're the JV. You're playing against the varsity squad. I mean, that's what it is.
And I love that you made the point about JJ Redick's decision to not sub in the second half at all. Which, by the way, like I can understand if like LeBron and Luka were hot. Can't take them out, but we couldn't even find like 3 minutes for them because an argument could be made. And I think you even texted this to me that LeBron had a 3-point shot that just was no legs attached to it. He went all arms, super short. Luka's shot couldn't get to the basket because again, these guys are gassed. They played all 24 minutes of the second half, little to no rest. And then we're calling on them in the final minutes when it's needed the most. And we had like Vanderbilt we could have put in. We could have put in Gabe Vincent. We could have put in some other guys to give them a couple of minutes somewhere along the way of some rest. And so I think what I'm disappointed in is the one thing that we not only were excited about, which is the coaching of JJ Redick, is kind of the one thing that I would say is the huge difference maker between this playoff series. Like Chris Finch, and I'm not disparaging him at all, outside of like a couple of playoff outs that they've had the last few seasons, really can make the argument he's probably a coach on the bubble of like, is he worthy to keep? Should they move on from him? Whatever the case may be. Right. JJ Redick coming in, and some would have argued that maybe he was looked at as coach of the year candidate from some point in the season because of what he did with the Lakers, from what Darvin Ham had them looking like to what JJ Redick had them looking like. But yet in this playoff series, like JJ Redick, his coaching inexperience is so glaring. Like it's hard to like ignore like how exploited he looks as a coach, you know, in terms of like he needs this playoff series loss essentially to teach him how to be a better playoff coach, maybe, you know, which I would hate for this to be that, but I think it's the way that we're losing down 3-1. And LeBron, again, we're at the twilight of his career. You know, don't get me wrong. Like in the next few seasons, it's going to look great next to Luka, but you know, is it going to look the same without LeBron too? Because LeBron and Luka have found a rhythm. Like they're pairing pretty well, but also makes me wonder, like, did we make the right move by not letting Dalton Connect go for Marvin Williams or whatever? Like all that fell through. Like maybe we should have gotten a center. Like maybe we relied on going small too quickly because the Timberwolves are tall, and not only are they tall, they're aggressive. We don't seem to have that aggression on the team. And I don't know. I'm not saying it's a toughness thing. I'm just saying the Lakers just don't have that grit that the Timberwolves have. And I do want to volley this over to you. And we talked about this right before we started recording, that the Timberwolves, the way that they've been playing the Lakers, if they get past this series, which by all intents and purposes, even by the way this game is starting and how it's playing out, it's a high probability. They look like probably the most dangerous team in the West because of the defense, because of the pieces that they have, and of one particular player you and I have not basically stopped talking about all this week. And even when we had our collab together on your show, Anthony Edwards, I think there's no doubt in my mind that this series is showing, especially if he closes out this series tonight in LA, he's the new face of the league, in my opinion, like hands down, because we've been looking for a guy to give this mantle. And this guy comes into Lakerland and kicks the door down for it. Already said, I don't want to be the face of the league. And here he is taking the hearts of Lakers everywhere. That's my opinion on it.
I think he needs to go a little bit farther, but he's there and he's doing and saying the right things. He's talking to, team. He talks about, okay, we won. I'm going to the gym. He's kind of like that Kobe type vibe. Like, dude, we haven't won anything yet. Or I need to go hit the gym and be ready for the next game. So he's saying the right things. If he can make it to the finals with this team, watch out. He will be the superstar this league is looking for to kind of take on the mantle of that next guy. Because you got, Nikola Jokic, who is, to me, arguably, again, the best basketball player in the world, but his personality is the Sahara. He is about as dry as you can get. So it's hard for the NBA to wrap their arms around him and make him the face of the league, but you get somebody that's a little more charming, a little more charismatic, and an Anthony Edwards. And if he shows out and is doing what he's been doing and blacks out and gets into this Michael Jordan zone, which I hate when people compare others to Michael Jordan. That drives me nuts. So that's a whole nother argument.
Right.
But if he does the right things and he takes this T-Wolves team to the next level, superstar, done.
Yeah.
He's on the way. He'll be on cereal boxes. Finished. Yeah.
I love how people and also too, I always love when there's a LeBron and MJ debate that comes up because I'm a big MJ guy. I recognize LeBron's accolades, his career, probably never going to see it again. I acknowledge that. And I'm not trying to start an MJ LeBron debate. My point being is I never hear anyone say, they got in LeBron mode. But I always hear people say he's MJ. He got into MJ mode or MJ mindset. Never hear that about LeBron's side in the playoffs, even though statistically he's been in the finals more, in the playoffs more, and all that stuff. But I've never hear anyone say, "Oh man, he totally went into LeBron mode." I only hear like, "Man, that was some MJ stuff." Because
there's Jordan God mode or there's the mama mentality. Those are the two biggest ones. You're going to hear Kobe, you're going to hear Jordan. Right. And that's again, when you get into that LeBron James argument, I'm a huge Jordan guy too. Nobody compares. But these are the things that Anthony Edwards is doing. He's trying to follow on that path because he knows that's what's going to get him to the promised land. Right. And it just so happens that they're playing the Lakers, and the Lakers' glaring shortages are glaring in this because everybody was expecting the Los Angeles Lakers to be this juggernaut team because when Luka came over and that initial excitement happened, all of a sudden they're playing defense and they're winning games and they're jumping up in the West and they're making noise and they're going to make noise in the play. That was such an overinflated because it's the Los Angeles Lakers and they move the needle, and the NBA was praying for a Lakers, Celtics, NBA Finals, East Coast, West Coast. They would have sold the whole thing because they do not want a Midwest team or a small market team in there because, we've had some great ratings. Now we're going to lose the ratings. But I think they're going to get the ratings with Anthony Edwards. If he can do this, gets through LA and then moves on to the next, watch out.
Yeah. And I love too, I do want to point this out. You did say this offline, so that way I give you all the credit for this. You said that Anthony Edwards is a guy that could lead this team into the finals to represent the West. I do want to acknowledge that because I think so too, but I do want to give you kudos. You're the one that said that to me offline, not recorded. So I do want to give you your kudos on the show about that.
I appreciate that.
All right. So we're going to kind of go through a couple more of these series a little bit. I'm going to save your Knicks for last because, of course, that's your team. But I do want to bring up this series, which I think has been a little probably one of the more exciting, which is the Clippers and Nuggets. I think my notes are a little old. I don't know if they're tied 2-2 anymore. I think the Nuggets are up. Are they still tied up?
They're still 2-2. Yep.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I didn't miss a game somewhere. But anyways, the Nuggets, if I'm not mistaken, took the most recent game, obviously game 4.
Yep.
I want to say that was in Denver, if I'm not mistaken, with Jamal Murray having another 40-point game, if I'm not mistaken as well. And I keep saying if I'm not mistaken because my memory works that way. Jamal Murray is the all-time leader in Nuggets.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is 3-2. I'm sorry. Okay. Where do we miss a game?
Okay, game 5, I think, is what we just happened last night.
That is last night's game, and that's why, because my brain is not working either here. So, yes, game 5 last night.
So the Nuggets are up 3-2.
3-2, yep.
Correction on that one, live on the show.
Yep. Correct.
Nuggets are up 3-2 on the Clippers. That was all in part because Jamal Murray had a heroic game.
Yeah, 43 points.
He had 43 points. I think he has the most 40-point playoff games in Nuggets history. I think he's the all-time leader in that, which is ironic because his teammate is Jokic, who is one of the best Nuggets to ever put on a uniform outside of Carmelo and maybe Alex English, if you want to throw him in there as well. But Who do you still have the Nuggets closing out this series?
Yes. James Harden has been invisible the last 2-3 games of this series. Kawhi Leonard has been quietly impressive.
Quietly impressive? You're underselling Kawhi a little bit.
Quietly impressive because I still can't. It's still hard for me to give Kawhi that much.
I like you, Jason. I'll let you slide on that one just a little bit, but I think you're really underselling Kawhi's contribution to the Clippers in this series. He is not the reason why they are not in this series. It's the other guy, and Kawhi has stayed on the court, been healthy, which is what you critiqued him at.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be a Kawhi advocate here because I was the same way. Like, he's never on the court, whatever. I just want to acknowledge that he has been on the court for quite a bit of time, and he is starting to look like the Kawhi that we recognize from the playoffs. And if James Harden were to show up, maybe this should be an indictment on James Harden that this Clippers team could go a very long distance on the backs of Kawhi and James Harden. But James Harden is kind of letting this team down. But I did want to acknowledge, and I'll let you off the hook a little bit with the Kawhi thing because I really think you're not giving him a fair shot.
Look, it's all about history. The last, 4 or 5 years, Kawhi Leonard has been essentially invisible. And I'm glad to see him back because he is a great player.
Mm-hmm.
Championship, one with the Spurs, took Toronto to the promised land, but then just, kind of disappeared and floated around and was on a couple of different teams and then comes here to the Clippers and kind of sits out. Or when's he going to play? Is Kawhi ever going to play? So that's why I said this is, to me, quietly impressive that he has shown up in these playoffs. But yes, this series is an indictment on James Harden. And I said this before with you. I still remember James Harden crawling around on the ground looking for his mouthpiece when he played for Oklahoma City when they got beat. I believe it was Golden State that beat him in Game 7. And that, to me, is just burnt in my brain. It's one of those memories of, he's a great scorer, but when it comes to winning the important game, when it comes to the playoffs, he just completely falls apart. He completely disappears. I don't know if the moment is just too big for him. I don't know what his deal is because he can drop 30, 40 points at any given time. But then in a playoff game where you're needed and you have a superstar next to you to help you win, you score like 11 points and you're barely there. That to me is set in stone. James Harden is what he is. He just is a regular season point scorer. Other than that, you can't trust him in the playoffs. And that's why I picked the Nuggets to get through this series, is because I can't trust either one of those guys. Kawhi Leonard has played very well in this series, and I am impressed that he stayed healthy and has been very good in this series. But unfortunately, James Harden right now is ruining that.
Yeah, unfortunately so. And I do want to acknowledge, kind of going back to the Lakers, they have put in Max Keebler, who was also a part of the Luka trade. He was one of the couple of players that were involved. This is his first game time action in 44 games. Good luck with that. I don't know if that's a difference maker, but that's a side note. So anyways, okay, so let's just assume that the Nuggets get past this series. The next opponent would be the number 1 seed Thunder. Do you like the Thunder's chance to move on, or do you think the Nuggets could upset the number 1 seed?
If Jamal Murray plays like he did the other night, and Nikola Jokic continues to do what he does, and you get Aaron Gordon and a lot of these other role players, Russell Westbrook played very well the other night. So if you get those role players playing, I think they're going to give Oklahoma City a run for their money. And that's where that first game, if Oklahoma City plays Denver, that first game, if Denver comes out and starts shooting and plays the way they're playing now and smacks Oklahoma City around, then that's going to be an interesting series. Now, I think Oklahoma City has the firepower. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander still possibly We haven't heard any announcement yet, but my MVP watch. We got my crack visual staff here. MVP watch for Club Shay Shay. He needs to be what Anthony Edwards is doing for the Timberwolves. He needs to say, no, Anthony, I'm the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the next guy. I'm going to be the one taking my team to the promised land, not you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to come down, if they play this series and it's against the Nuggets, it's going to come down to, does Shai Gilgeous-Alexander take his team to the next level, or does Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray come in there and smack them around? Because those guys have won a chip before. Oklahoma City's never won anything. They've never been in the finals. Denver has. Now, the one hiccup is Denver's playing with an interim coach, but they seem to be navigating that pretty well, because that interim coach, who essentially has never coached before, is out coaching JJ Redick. So,
well, I will also say too, I think that coach, and I don't even know the interim coach's name for the Nuggets, so I apologize for that, but he has been on the staff for a while, so it's not like he's
right.
It's not like he's oblivious to playoff success. And not to say that JJ Redick doesn't know anything about the playoffs. Former player, he's been in the playoffs several times throughout his career, so he knows the playoffs. But we can agree coaching the playoffs is a lot different than probably playing in the playoffs.
Right.
As Jason, you and I, former NBA players, know all about that, because of course we lace them up and we know about playoff basketball. But I think I would give the Nuggets the Thunder a little bit more credit. I think, yes, they're young. They have had experience of success, minor success, also failure in the playoffs as young as they were, where I think they're hungry enough to where they could supersede the Nuggets in a sense. And I don't think it's because the Nuggets don't have enough. I just think that the Nuggets, the off the bench players that they have, the rotations that they have, Shai Gilgeous, I just think that team's a little bit more hungrier than the Nuggets are. And I think the Nuggets, what they're going to find is just what's their identity. Also, too, can Jamal Murray repeat a lot of those performances? Or is Westbrook going to make some costly plays that turns the ball over and makes the difference? Because you can't make mistakes with the Thunder. They shoot too well. They can beat you in a bunch of different ways. They can either beat you at the 3-point line, or they can take you off the dribble and go to the rack. So the Nuggets, do they even have the defense to compete with that? I don't know. And Jokic, sure, he's a triple-double waiting to happen. And I think I heard this on a commentary, which was kind of funny. I think it was Doris Burke that said, the best thing that you can do for Jokic is keep him at a 25 triple-double. And that's kind of funny to say, because he's basically averaging a 45 triple-double. And as long as he doesn't get to that, you should be okay.
Right.
I think that's what the Thunder could do, but they do have a lot more band of pieces, in my opinion, that could keep up and maybe even excel past the Nuggets, in my opinion. So I think the Thunder, I'd give them a little bit more credit. It's going to be a tough series for sure, but I think the Thunder could pull it out. They're the number one, team for a reason.
Right.
And it's going to take another team. And I don't even think the Nuggets are the best team to go against them. I think if the Timberwolves and Nuggets met, that matchup would intrigue me. And I would think I think the Thunder would have an interesting time against the Timberwolves if that ever comes up. But we have to see if they even get past the Lakers, or if the Lakers can even survive this game, because it's not looking great right now. But okay, moving on to the Pacers eliminating the Bucks in 5 games, of course. And I think you and I pretty much predicted this one. Pacers were going to kind of wax the Bucks. It wasn't even going to be a competition. But when we were texting this on the Boom group chat as well, early this morning, post-game analysis, kind of thinking about it. Should Giannis request a trade from the Bucks following the playoff performance that this Milwaukee team suffered?
Yes. Giannis, get out of there. They wanted to blow this team up at the beginning of the season. They wanted to trade Giannis. They wanted to fire Doc Rivers. Here's your excuse to do it. Doc Rivers is going to... Now, they may keep Doc Rivers if they trade Giannis and get some pieces, which I think they should do. You can get a haul for Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's still top 5 in the NBA. He is an amazing player. He had a 30-point triple-double in a losing effort. A couple of mistakes in that game by Trent Jr., and that goes the other way. Halliburton making, some final plays there. But Giannis needs to get out of Milwaukee. He has given that city everything he could. He gave him a championship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest motivating factor for that is going to be Dame Lillard. Dame Lillard spent way too long in Portland. He was loyal to Portland. He gave them everything he had. And then I think it was a little too long. I think it was a few years too long where he could have got out. He could have had, they said, look, we'll get you out of here. We'll trade you away. We'll get you into a contender. He's like, no, I want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And they had him stay. And I think he stayed way too long. So now he's kind of past his prime. Now, with the Achilles injury, he's going to miss all next year.
Yeah.
So you're probably not going to see him till he's 37, 38 years old. He's way too long. So Giannis is going to go, I still have game in me.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't get out now, when am I going to get out? When I'm 38 and I don't have any game left?
Mm-hmm.
Bucks, same thing. Go out there, shop Giannis. You're going to get a haul for him. You need to retool and rebuild that team anyways, because you don't really have a lot of pieces to build around.
Mm-hmm.
You have Giannis, and that's about it. It's not like the Grizzlies, who at least have Scottie Pippen Jr., Jaren Jackson Jr. They at least have some solid pieces to kind of build a squad around. Milwaukee doesn't.
Yeah.
So go out there, go out there and get your haul for Giannis. Giannis, ask for the trade. Get out of Milwaukee, because if you stay there, who are they going to bring in with you? Who are they going to put around you? You're going to command too much money. And if you stay, I don't think Doc Rivers stays, because I don't know if Giannis and Doc, to me, that doesn't really fit. And I think Giannis is frustrated to the point where I've given you everything. I was loyal to you as a city. I brought you a championship. I did everything I could. It's time for me to move on.
That's interesting. I'm wondering if before Milwaukee entertains a trade for Giannis, if maybe they look to get rid of Doc first, bring in a coach that maybe Giannis vibes with a little bit more. But we also had posed this in the group chat too, that I don't think that Doc is going anywhere yet. I think maybe one more season of like disappointment, maybe not even making the playoffs next year might be something that where they let him go, because he just signed a 5-year extension last year. So he's on the books until after the 27 season. So he's still tied to the Bucks for 2 more seasons minimum. And
I think that's why they keep him, because if they get rid of Giannis and you have a rebuild team, I don't want to say lame duck coach, but then you have Doc Rivers. You're already paying him anyways. So you might as well pay him to coach a rebuild, as opposed to paying him to sit on the sidelines, and you still have to rebuild. So,
yeah. Okay. So Jason, on your show, you usually do a top 5 almost every episode. So I did text you this. So if Giannis is to request a trade from Milwaukee, give me the 5 teams that you think would be the best landing spot for Giannis.
All right, we'll start with 5 and go. We'll go 5 and go up here. And I have a dark horse too, so I'm going to throw a 6th in there just to kind of.
All right. An honorable mention is what we call it.
Honorable mention.
Okay.
5 Miami Heat. The only issue with is you have some draft capital there in Miami, but I think any trade that involves Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to really involve Tyler Hero. So you're going to have Wiggins, have Adebayo, and then you bring him down there. You probably get some free agents. Pat Riley's good at kind of, negotiating, but I think Giannis down in Miami with the Heat culture would fit. Number 4, and this one to me is scary, but they have the pieces and the picks to do it, would be the San Antonio Spurs.
Wow.
San Antonio. Can you imagine Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, and Giannis Antetokounmpo on the same team?
I think
Now
David Stern would roll over in his grave and say no.
Woo! I mean, but you'd have to probably get rid. They got the picks. You probably have to get rid of Castle because he's your rookie of the year, up and coming stud. So Milwaukee's going to want something for Giannis.
Yeah.
But man, if you put Giannis with Wemby and De'Aaron Fox, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm throwing this one out there because it'd be an interesting trade, but Memphis Grizzlies, you put Ja and Giannis, you get a little package. Ja goes over to Milwaukee. Giannis comes and plays with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Scottie Pippen Jr. I think that would be a nice fit there. It's a smaller market team, which I think Giannis really likes, kind of that smaller market vibe. So Memphis, I think, would be a nice fit for him. Now, I got this at number 2, a little bit of a long shot, but I'm going to throw you a bone because I kind of feel bad that the T-Wolves are going
beating us up,
are beating the doors off of you right now. The Los Angeles Lakers. I think if the Lakers can make some moves, I don't know if they have enough draft capital to really make it happen, but if you put Luka and Giannis together, you'd have to move LeBron because I think you're going to need the money for cap space, etc., which I think LeBron would do and bow out. But my long shot would be the Los Angeles Lakers, but that's a bigger market city.
Yeah.
I don't know how well he would vibe with that. He likes that small market, and I think that's why he likes Milwaukee so much. But my number 1, which is even scarier, would be the Oklahoma City Thunder. Ooh. They have a slew of number 1 picks. Their GM is amazing at just collecting draft capital. They have some younger pieces they can move. So you figure Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet, and Giannis, they're already the number 1 in the West as it is. Then you put Giannis on that team. Ooh, and it's a smaller market, kind of his vibe, his deal. I don't know how he'd look in a pair of like cowboy boots, but you never know. But those are my 5, and my dark horse honorable mention, 6-1 that could probably swoop in there, played tonight would be the Houston Rockets.
Ooh.
So they have some draft capital, they have some pieces they can move. You put him with Amen Thompson and Jalen Green, or him and Sengun. So those are my top spots for Mr. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I like the Houston one. I just, I wonder, would they include a Jalen Green in that and try to keep a lot of those other pieces, or do you put Jabari Smith in there? That's interesting. I'm actually surprised, and I'm kind of proud of you. You didn't put your Knicks in there, but I think because you guys let go so much capital to get Bridges, had this deal been on the table a year sooner, maybe you guys would have made a real push for Giannis. But you guys have a lot of players that you guys can unload, but not a lot of draft picks left. So
no, and I don't. Again, the vibe, New York City. I don't know how well he would fit. Look, I wouldn't say no.
Sure,
but we gave up five top draft picks for Mikal Bridges. So I would have loved to have given that up for Giannis Antetokounmpo. But I think we're married to Bridges right now, unfortunately. But this is the NBA. This is where dollars and, I know the cap is going to be a little higher next year. But, man, like I said, there's some good teams out there. But there's some dangerous teams, man. You put Giannis on some of those teams there, especially like San Antonio or Oklahoma City. Dangerous.
Yeah. I wonder if New Orleans would be crazy enough to offer Zion for Giannis and then try to build around that.
I don't think Milwaukee would do it. Why would you want somebody that is but never available? Never available. I don't care how much younger you are, man. The best ability is availability. And Zion Williamson has been on a milk carton his whole career so far. So he is just never there. He needs to be moved on too. The Pelicans are a disaster.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the Wizards being the worst franchise probably in sports right now, I would say the Pelicans.
I don't know. The Colorado Rockies are doing a pretty good job in baseball right now. They're 4 wins on the year, and we've played over a month of baseball. So I think the Colorado Rockies would have something to say about worst franchise in history.
They're just a bad team, and I would still throw the Athletics in there and what they're doing. You got teams playing in minor league stadiums, but that's a whole nother story. But no, I live here near the DMV, and the Washington Wizards ownership group is probably one of the worst. They're kind of like the Cleveland Browns of the NBA, if that means anything.
That's not a great moniker.
No, that's not a great comparison. Not a good comparison.
No. All right. So we got one more NBA question, and then we're going to move on to the NFL because that's probably the meat and potatoes. So I'll try to get through this quickly. But it's your Knicks. So your Knicks are up 3-2. Of course, they dropped a heartbreaker to Detroit. I think it was last night. So I'm curious. Yep. I'm still on the camp that the Knicks are going to move on. So I'm going to give you that. I think that they're moving on to the next round. I think Detroit has to win the next 2 games, one of them being in New York. I don't know if that's possible because New York's a hard place to play in, and I think the Knicks are too good of a team to lose 2 games in a row, in my opinion. So if the Knicks move on to the Celtics, how do you like your chances against the Celtics in the second round? 0.
They couldn't beat them at all this year. Look, the Knicks were 0-8 against the Celtics and the Cavaliers. Mm-hmm. So if you couldn't beat them on a Tuesday night in December, what makes you think you're going to beat the champions, returning champions in a playoff series? And I don't even have them. I think it's going to be tough for them to get by Detroit. Uh-huh. Detroit is playing really good basketball. Really physical basketball. I love this series. It's this throwback 90s. It's giving me kind of the old school vibes. I got this like I'm thinking of the bad boy Pistons and my old school New York Knicks, where they just throw elbows and it's very physical. The refs are holding the whistles, but Jalen Brunson is hurt. That game that they lost last night, he looked like a shell of himself. That concerns me. Because he was out a month with that ankle and re-injures it. He only had 16 points in that game. Mm-hmm. He was non-existent in the fourth quarter where they really needed him. Karl-Anthony Towns. We did this trade in the beginning of the season. Got rid of Randall, DiVincenzo. We brought you in to be that guy that Jalen Brunson can count on. If he's not there. 17 points in a pivotal game at home.
So
you can't disappear like that when you are a superstar. Jalen Brunson is hurt. He's giving you everything he's got. He can barely stand on his ankle right now, and you can see that, and it's evident in this game that they just played the other night. Mm-hmm. And that's what scares me moving forward is because this series is so physical, is Brunson going to be able to even get through Detroit? Because Detroit is playing good basketball. Cade Cunningham has been playing unbelievable basketball. He was up for most improved player. I know they gave it to the Hawks' Dyson Daniels, but I if I had a vote, I would have given it to Cade Cunningham. He has impressed me. He's been very aggressive. These playoffs, I think a little too aggressive. I think he needs to get his teammates involved a little bit more, but I think that's kind of the learning curve for him. Dennis Schroeder has found a home. You talk about a guy that complained because he got traded 4 different times this year. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, he's on a playoff team, and he's been playing really well. Pivotal shots. The Knicks, we just don't have that fire because we live and die by Jalen Brunson. And Brunson's hurt. So Karl-Anthony Towns hasn't been that guy. Mikal Bridges is supposed to be that guy. He has done nothing to either take the mantle or add to what the Knicks need. So I don't know. I'm still nervous about them even getting through to the next round.
So it sounds like, so this is probably going to answer the question I was going to ask you then is, what you're most concerned about with your Knicks is the fact that Jalen Brunson doesn't have anyone to rely on for scoring. And I think to your credit, Jalen Brunson was out for a portion of the season from an ankle injury that he sustained, ironically, against the Lakers. And he was out for a considerable amount of time. And I think you guys were in the 3rd seed at that point. And you guys were losing a little bit of track because really nobody stepped up to take on the scoring role in some of these games. And some of the games that you lost without Brunson were winnable games.
Yeah, we were out. He was out over a month, and we were 500. We were a 500 ball club without Jalen Brunson.
And with the amount of pieces that you guys have and the defensive specialists you guys have, I would have thought that your defense would have won you games as well. But so I think it's safe to say your concern with the Knicks is the fact that Jalen Brunson doesn't have anyone he can defer to for scoring, right? Is that accurate to say?
I would say that's kind of there's A and B right now. 1A and 1B. 1A is his health. As if Jalen Brunson is out there hobbling and only gives you 16 points, they're going to lose because they don't have the other guy that's been stepping up. Karl Anthony Towns hasn't given you 30 in how long? Malik Bridges hasn't given you 30 in how long? Josh Hart, where's these triple doubles at? Where you been at? Guys are flying around the court, but just because you're flying around the court doesn't mean you're doing anything. But right now, my biggest concern is the health of Jalen Brunson because this New York Knicks team, that heartbeat is Jalen Brunson. And then there's everybody else. And if he's hurt and hobbled, I think we're hurting.
Yeah, good point. All right, Jason. So that's the end of our NBA playoff segment. We're going to move on to the NFL. I'm going to try to get through these questions early because we have a Shedeur Sanders conversation that you and I have to have from our, again, our good old group chat in Boom Broadcasting. Got pretty hot between you and I, but it's all love. It's all just conversation. Nothing serious. So anyways, I do want to say that I want to acknowledge on the NBA draft part that I think the New York Giants did a phenomenal job drafting. Obviously their first round pick, they found a way to get Abdul Carter by the grace of God, and think maybe the Cleveland Browns as well, because, maybe the Browns wanted Carter over Travis Hunter, but the Jags decided that Hunter was worth 2 first-round picks. And so the Jags leapfrogged that, and Abdul Carter fell to you guys at 3. And then probably some would say the steal of the draft, and some would say the reach of the draft, Jackson Dart going to the 21st pick that you guys traded back into the first round for. So my first question about your Giants is, how confident are you in Dart as being your guys' quarterback for the future?
The past 6 years since Eli Manning has retired, my confidence level in any New York Giants quarterback has been fairly low. He has the potential, and what helps it out is he doesn't have to start right away. You got Russell Wilson in there. They brought in Jameis Winston. They got a quarterback room, Tommy Cutlets. So they got a quarterback room where he can kind of sit and do some learning and absorb. He has some of the tools. I know the Giants were greatly impressed with him. His pro day and his draft stock went up during the combine, because a lot of teams were very impressed by him and the way he handled himself and just some of the things he was doing on the field. So he really bumped his draft stock up during that combine and his pro day. I like him. I think it was a great pick because this was not a very heavy quarterback draft. You had Cam Ward and then everybody else. And if you look at everybody else, who else was better than a Jackson Dart as far as tools? It definitely wasn't Sanders. It definitely was not Dylan Gabriel, and so on and so on. So I was impressed by what the Giants did by not making a move at 3 and getting Abdul Carter, because our front 4, is going to be scary, and we need that in the NFC East, because right now we are looking up to the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. So we needed to do something. And that defensive front four is going to be with Burns and Dexter Lawrence. And now you got Abdul Carter. Oh, my goodness gracious. Watch out, NFC East. But to trade back into the first round and take Jackson Dart and making sure not another team didn't take him, I thought it was a bold move, but I thought it was the right move because you have a quarterback room where he can sit and learn from a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Russell Wilson's been to 2 Super Bowls, should have won 2, but, beast mode and throwing an intercept, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But at least won a Super Bowl. So he can learn and sit for a year or 2 years and really develop into that guy that we're looking for. So I like the pick. How confident am I? That remains to be seen. I'd like to see him in action first. I think that will tell the tale, but at least we don't have to throw him in the first year because you don't need to with what we have right now.
So with the whole craze of the NFL recently, obviously as recent as just like CJ Stroud and fill in whatever rookie quarterback that was taken in the first round where you feel like you got to start them immediately. So you're okay with the Giants if they took the route of, even though we got Dart in the first round, there's no obligation, there's no pressure to start him right away because he's a first round pick, even though, I mean, in previous seasons, that has been kind of the MO of the NFL. So you're okay with Dart sitting for a year because of the experience in the quarterback room?
Yes. The only reason you would even remotely consider that is if, if Russell Wilson maybe gets hurt or is just horrible, if Jameis Winston goes out there and gets hurt or is just horrible. So, I mean, there has to be a lot of mitigating factors because you don't want to just throw them out here because if he is going to be your franchise quarterback for the future, you don't want to put him out there without a paddle. So unless something huge happens, I don't see the need to start him unless like either you're completely out of the playoffs and it's like the last game and you want to throw him out there to kind of see what he does against some NFL talent, something of that nature. But there's no need to start him. You got Russell Wilson, you got Jameis Winston. That's why they brought those guys in the building, is because they want to develop him. And I'm kind of impressed by it. They don't want to make the same Danny Dimes mistakes.
Okay. I'm curious though, Jason. So you and I, our first meetup together was on Michael Davis' show, president of Boom Broadcasting, on Out of Pocket. That was like back in October, or I think September, maybe. We were talking NFL. You and I were joking because at the time, our teams, as a Raiders fan, you as a Giants fan, weren't doing so great. No. Our two teams at one point were fighting for the number 1 seed or for the number 1 pick. And at the time, you were on the camp to get a Shedeur Sanders. Now, this isn't going to lead into the debate, so don't worry about it. I just am curious, though. At the time, you were looking forward to the Giants. If they had the opportunity to get Shedeur Sanders, and yet as the draft came up, that's not what happened. They took Dart, and you seemed to be happy with Dart over Sanders. I'm curious, what happened during that time between then and now that made you decide Sanders isn't the quarterback that I want my Giants to take?
Production, seeing the totality of what they have done, how they performed in college, seeing the totality of what they did as far as leading up to the draft. So it's hindsight is 2020. It's easy to look at something when it's fresh, new, and you see some, one game and like, holy cow, yeah, he looks great in this one game. And then all of a sudden you see the step back and you look at the bigger picture and go, wait a minute. It was just one game. Holy cow. So from where we were to where we are now, to see the growth that the one has done and the other hasn't, that's why I'm happy with the pick. Because that's what you ultimately want to see with kids. I mean, you're talking about college kids. I know they are not marketed that way. with nil money and there's all this other stuff going on. You throw them right in the NFL, but these are still 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, regular people, regular kids this age, they barely know how to drive, let alone, quarterback professionally for a NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to see improvements. You have to see guys taking the next steps. You have to see the potential moving forward. And Giants saw it. I can see it in Jackson Dart. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
has been impressive in all the stages. He was, he played well in college, but it's after that, after the college was over, improving himself, marketing himself,
Mm-hmm.
going out there and showing his skills and learning and trying to develop into an NFL quarterback. That's what you want to see in somebody that you're going to bring in and hopefully hand the keys. So, when you get the keys to the Ferrari, you don't go jump on I-95 right off the bat and think you're going to do $150 and not crash the car. You start in the parking lot like I did. When I started to learn driving, you got in the big old empty parking lot and you were scared and you were holding on, white knuckling that steering wheel, and you learned how to drive. But you learned and you were humble about it. Big difference.
Okay. So kind of going back to your Giants a little bit before we move on to another question. So you mentioned at your first answer with your confidence level with Jackson Dart that you liked and you were surprised by how Brian Daboll, your GM, Joe Scone, had operated the draft. So I'm curious, do you trust Brian Daboll and Joe Scone for the future of what they've done? Do you trust them to right the ship, or do you think they're avoiding the inevitable?
You brought that question up. How confident can you be in a coach who has gone 18-32-1? I know he's credited for developing Josh Allen, so you can hang your hat on that. But he has not proven himself. I think he's a good coach, but I think it's more of one of those assistant type. It's hard to be a head coach and succeed in the NFL. It is a very difficult job. And so far, he has proven that he can't do it. I like him. I like him as a person. I kind of like his attitude. That doesn't win games. Won 18 games, lost 32, and you had a tie. Not impressive. So, not very confident in the coaching staff. And then when you talk about the GM, Joe, you signed Danny Dimes to a 4-year, $160 million contract, $81 million guaranteed. And then like 4 games later, you sit him and then you trade him away. Like, how confident can you be in your GM that does a move like that? Like, it's one thing that you acknowledge you made a mistake, but then you say, look, I made a mistake. We're going to cut ties. I'm not signing him. Good luck somewhere else, Danny. We're going to move on. Scratch it off. My bad. I'll own it. No, you double down and then go, oops, well, let's trade him away. So, this is a make or break season for Brian and Joe. I think they both go. I don't see the way this team's constructed as well as that defense looks, and that defense looks scary right now. We kind of have a whole new offense to deal with when you're talking about Russell Wilson possibly being the starter, Tyrone Tracy at running back, Malik Neighbors, who is all world at wide receiver, but then who else do you have? So
they drafted your boy Scatterbro, so
I'm super excited about him. Running back Scatterbro, he I think he's going to be Christian McCaffrey 2.0. That's a whole nother story.
Okay.
So being ahead, I don't know if they can get ahead of the Eagles, but the Eagles lost a lot this year. So we have a chance, but we have to finish in the mix
Mm-hmm.
in the NFC East and show improvement for these guys to stick around. But if they go 8-9, have a losing season and finish behind Philly, finish behind the Commanders, they're gone. This is your make or break, but you better have a good season and a productive season, and let's see the future. I want to see the future this year. I want to win now, of course, but I also want to make sure next year and the year after that we're going to have some winning seasons and the winning football comes back to New York. I don't want a 1-year flash in the pan. And that's gonna be kind of pretty evident pretty quickly there in New York because the NFC East is tough. And if they don't start having quality wins, I don't know if Dayball lasts the whole season. I don't know if Joe lasts the whole season because I think these guys are locked together. I don't think one stays and one goes. I think it's clean house. They're both gone. Vamoose. I don't think they make it. I think it's going to be very tough. But
okay.
I'm
If the Giants, gotcha. If the Giants are overachievers this season, where they sneak away and get into the wild card some way because of the pieces that they've added and the roster changes and all that, so if the defense as well, I think we can credit the defense for really probably catalyzing that, not just the offense. But if that was the case, how would you feel if the Giants extended Daboll and GM Joe? If they somehow were like had one season of like that unexpected success that kind of warrants a contract extension, how would you feel about that?
I want to see the reason why. So, I mean, it's if you can get there and be in the wild card or be in the mix, if the reason is because of the pieces they brought in and the way they're being coached, then yes. But if they get there because Jaden Daniels goes down in Washington and they end up losing a bunch of games, or Hurst goes down in Philly and they lose a bunch of games, I don't want them to slide past other teams because of their shortcomings and we just happen to get lucky. I don't want to see luck. I want to see improvement. I want to see the future. I want to see progress, not regression.
Okay. Final NFL question before we get to the main event. And you cannot pick your Giants. So what team in the AFC and what team in the NFC do you think won the draft?
AFC, I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it was a bold move. It was a bold move, Cotton. I think it was a bold move to trade and get the best player in the draft. And I think Hunter got lost in the mix with the drama and Carter and Ward and everything that was going on. Dude, he was still the best player in the draft, and they traded up to get him. I think they made some great moves. So Jacksonville Jaguars, I really feel improved their team. And the NFC, man, watch out the Atlanta Falcons. Well, good grades. Their defense just skyrocketed. Penix looked pretty good at the end of the season. I'm curious to see how that's going to fit. But if you got Penix, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, if he decides to show up, and then you got a defense and a pretty weak NFC South, watch out Atlanta Falcons. But to me, the Atlanta Falcons won the draft because they got 2 steals for that defense in that first round. So give me those 2 teams.
I dig it. So my AFC would be the Houston Texans. I really like what they did on the wide receiver side of it. They really needed to find some replacements for Tank Dell because who knows how long he'll be out or even if he'll be healthy enough to come back.
Play.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they got some 2 receiver studs that came out of the draft, and they bolstered up a little bit of the defense, but really the receiver side for the offense really looks a lot better now. And for NFC, I wouldn't say your Giants are the outright winners, but I think that they are one of like 3 teams I can throw out in the NFC that took it because of some of the moves. Abdul Carter is just such a difference maker. You guys not only got potentially your franchise quarterback in the first round under a contract for 5 years, Also Abdul Carter for 5 years under rookie contracts, so you guys can build around them. Super impressive. And that's not to say, too, some additional credit. Your guys' offensive line has improved from free agency, so there is some optimism on the offensive side of the ball. And Malik Neighbors, and again, we just talked about Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. There's a lot of quarterbacks going to be throwing that ball, and this offense is going to look a lot different. So I think the Giants should have a lot of optimism. So I'm glad that you do. So
yep, love it.
Now to the main conversation that you and I had, and I do want to preference this. So this was actually, this didn't even happen during the live stream of our draft marathon. It was actually I want to say Saturday. So we're talking the next day where we've gone through round 2 and round 3, and we were really talking about how, at least in my perspective, for me, I didn't like that Shedeur Sanders was falling as far. I'm wondering what the heck is going on. And the NFL is known, I wouldn't say to blackball players, but it's a boys club that they all kind of talk amongst one another, and they're not doing D's behind the scenes or anything like that. But when one does it, they all kind of do it, and I don't think that's fair. So I thought Shedeur Sanders' playing ability was far better than what was either being criticized by owners or GMs or scouts or why ever he didn't get traded. And then from your perspective, at least from what I got, is you brought the argument that there's other factors that played into it, along with some talent purposes. But in your perspective, there was some other things that, to you thought why Shedeur Sanders didn't go. And I, from what I understood, you were surprised that other people were surprised that he fell as far as he did. So I want to give the floor to you. From your perspective, what do you think caused Shedeur Sanders to fall the way that he did? And why, in your opinion, do you think that what did he do to cause it, is what I'll ask.
Well, first thing I want to talk about too is I mean, I know the NFL does a lot of NFL things, but this was not the NFL conspiring against Shedeur Sanders. There was 3 or 4 teams that he was on their draft board. This wasn't the whole league that didn't want to draft him. There was teams out there that didn't want him, didn't even look at him. So let's not think this was some cabal, dark, weird thing that the NFL was doing. They're going to just blackball him because of what he is or who he is or what his daddy is. I think that's a little too much. You had 3 possible landing spots for him when you talk about Pittsburgh, you talk about Cleveland, and you talk about New Orleans. Let's call it what it is. Shedeur Sanders was overhyped to begin with. Didn't really have a great college career. Won a few games, has some tools, but never won the big game, never could get over the hump, never really led them to any kind of even sniffing the playoffs or getting into a big bowl game. He never had the aha moment like, wow, he made that play, or wow. He never had any of that. He had the tools to be considered an NFL quarterback. All right, cool. When you show up to a job interview and you try everything you can that you shouldn't do, you argue with the coach, you insult the GM, you come in there like you are the gift of all gifts. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change your team because your team stinks. I know I didn't read the playbook that you gave me because I don't do any of that kind of stuff. I mean, to come in ill-prepared, to have the attitude he did, and some of the things that you're hearing of the way he talked to GMs, the way he talked to personnel, is disheartening, and it's kind of disappointing. That the biggest thing for me is when you look at a kid that gets drafted in the NFL, how many that first round when we were watching it, how many kids did you see sitting there crying?
Yeah, a lot.
Like emotional. Like, I'm not talking about fake alligator teeth. I'm talking about real emotion with their family. This is the biggest things. And I'm not even talking about just the first round. 4th, 5th, 6th round guys excited to get that phone call because they were one of the 200-300 players to be chosen to even try to get a chance to play in the NFL. Tears of joy. This wasn't a joke to them. Unfortunately, the way the Sanders camp treated this, they treated this like a joke. Like, I'm the greatest person in the world, and you're going to take me. Now, look, the NFL draft has been around since 1936. Been around a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen brash players up and down. We've seen guys that were so full of themselves, they needed 3 extra cars to come. But they had talent to back it up.
Yeah.
There are certain players out there that had baggage and came along with baggage, but something got them over the hump. Teams were like, yeah, I know this guy has some issues. This guy has a checkered past. This guy's had some legal troubles.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, look what he's done on the field. Man, look at some of the way he's played. Jalen Carter for the Eagles, involved with what he was involved with, but was still given a chance. Eagles look past that and go, he was a kid. Let's figure that out. But when you don't even show up to an interview prepared, when you insult your potential employer, when you make a mockery of the NFL shows you that nobody is bigger than the Shield, especially if you're not even in here yet. So this was more than him falling for teams to kind of make a point.
Mm-hmm.
It's just teams didn't want to spend the money on him because the higher your draft, the larger your contract's going to be. Those first years, your rookie contract. Excuse me, because they kind of have that set up now. Your top 10 picks get X amount of dollars, and so on. Your first round picks get X amount of dollars, and so on. So why would you draft somebody that wouldn't appreciate being there? You don't know if they're going to give you everything. Are you going to even be focused? Why am I going to give you millions of dollars a year and the keys to the Ferrari when you're going to make a mockery out of it? And you're not even going to focus. Teams are tired of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was the perfect storm. So it was the lack of aha moments in college, and the talent that over superseded all his other junk that he brought with him. It just wasn't there. And you got to remember these prognosticators that say, oh, Shedeur Sanders, he's top 2, top 3 quarterback. Most of the time, that's Mel Kiper and all these other guys coming up with their draft stock. So this was not even a lot of NFL teams going, we think he's a number 1 draft pick. No, I mean, who knows where they had him on their draft board? This was just, the sports world going, this is who we think should go number 1, or this is who we think number, and then all of a sudden it's a shock when he falls. Well, he was the reason he fell. I think his dad had a little bit to do with it, with kind of his attitude, but I think Sanders ultimately did this to himself. You can't be Neon Deion Sanders when you don't have the talent.
Okay, so that's a lot to unpack. I think what's a little... I don't know why people say, and I'm not saying you exclusively, Jason. I've heard some others say that Shedeur Sanders is a mid quarterback, as some would say, or is not that talented. I saw a guy who, Jackson State, when Deion brought him over there as a freshman and as a sophomore, tore it up on the field, goes to Colorado, did really well. In his senior year with Colorado, again, did really well. In fact, his senior year at Colorado, he had the highest completion percentage of all the playing time that he had. And I think outside of one game, he played every game that he was available. And I think what I'm confused on is he meets all the criteria for an NFL team to get an NFL quarterback. I'm not even arguing that he's worth a first round pick. But I will say it's just interesting during his playing time at Colorado, he made enough big plays to where week in and week out, for you and I at least, we were hoping that our respective teams would go for a player like Shedeur because we believed at what we were seeing on the field, and we both agreed he doesn't have an offensive line. He's scrambling for his life, and yet he's still doing pretty good. Like, we can agree on that. He didn't have a line, and so he was getting tore up. But for being tore up, he still threw for over 4,000 yards, almost 75% completion percentage. That's really hard to do. And for perspective, Jackson Dart had very similar stats. So, and your Giants, as what we talked about, climbed to the first round again to get a Jackson Dart. And I'm not even arguing, again, that Shedeur is a first-round pick. I think what I'm arguing is I just don't like the fact that because he has a lot of confidence in himself that his dad, Deion, did, which we know who Deion Sanders is, primetime Deion Sanders, the same guy that told you exactly how he felt, when he felt it. He backed it up. You hated it because you couldn't stop him. Not only did he play football, but he played baseball and showed it to everybody and whatever. And all Deion did was just make sure that his son had the best path to success. No different than a Bronny James, no different than, fill in XYZ player that has been able to help their child into getting into a profession or getting them a path to be successful. And I can understand if Shedeur Sanders rubs people the wrong way because of his attitude, but there's really only one clip that I see circulating social media and from ESPN respectively is the one where Shedeur Sanders just said, if you're not looking to change your franchise, don't draft me. And I'm not even upset about that because truthfully, if you were to pick him at the time, we're talking the teams like Jacksonville Jaguars, Cleveland Browns, unfortunately, New York Giants at one point. And we were also looking at the number one pick, Tennessee Titans. So, I mean, to be truthful, those teams and your Giants, and I'll even say my Raiders, we were in the top 10 at one point. And for several weeks, we held the number one pick at one point. If we were to get that pick, it's because we had a terrible season. And whoever this player is, we're hoping that they turn the franchise around. Because we're not trying to get the number one pick year after year after year. You do want some success to it. So I wasn't even upset that he said that because, like, if you break it down, yeah, that's true. If you have a high enough pick to draft him and you're not willing to turn your franchise around to win, he's just saying, I'm not interested in just not winning. And that's an attitude that his dad gave him.
One line taken out of context. I think, and again, you have to look at it at a deeper thing. I look at it from the Giants' perspective.
Yeah.
Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, they sent him essentially a playbook, an interview packet to prepare. And that's all these teams do that. They all send these quarterbacks, especially if they want to be a top pick, they send them a bunch of stuff because, again, they want to see commitment. They want to see if they can handle being an NFL quarterback because there's so much more to it than just throwing the football and being on the field. There's more to it. You got to study the playbook. You have to, there's nuances to it, etc.
100%. Yeah.
When you come into an interview with an entourage and an attitude, you don't prepare. You essentially thumb yourself at the coach and go, I didn't want to study. I don't do this stuff. I don't look at that. What does that have to do with me? You see what I did in college. You see how I can play football. I don't need to do any of that stuff. It essentially argued with the head coach, your potential employer.
Mm-hmm.
You sit there and have an argument in an interview, come unprepared with an attitude and go, okay, well, if you don't want to change your franchise, then don't draft me, and walk away.
Sure.
It's one thing to say that when you come prepared and you have the goods to pack it up. It's another thing to say that when you're arrogant and entitled. And just because you have a last name, just because you think you deserve something because you're entitled, the NFL will make you humble, young man, and they will show you nobody is bigger than this shield. I got guys on my wall here that have attitudes and have done worse stuff than Shedeur Sanders ever has or ever will do.
Yeah, ask LT.
He's right behind me. Right on the wall. But he was never bigger than the shield. And he treated people the way they deserve to be treated in an organization. His coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come into your an interview and do the things that is reported that he did, because again, I don't know, I wasn't there.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of these things,
Same.
again,
I don't know either. Yeah.
You can speculate. There's so much stuff flying around there. Who knows what's true? But there's got to be some truth to it, because we have never seen a fall. We saw Aaron Rodgers fall, but I think a lot of that had
still in the first round, though.
Yeah, still in the first round, but there was some other circumstances to that. Again, I think he was a little overhyped too. But it's one thing to be overhyped. I'm a team. I'm drafting. I got my big board. I'm looking at names. Ooh, he's still there. Ooh, he's still. Do I want this guy who is going to give me blood, sweat, and tears, who when I make the phone call is going to cry and hug his mama, and he's going to come in here and be respectful and want to learn and want to be an NFL player? Or am I going to make the phone call to a guy that probably can't hear over his party, who is probably not going to even care? I don't know if he's going to show up day one of camp. He's going to come in here, and pull in and be loud and just like, do we really want that? And are we going to invest our money into that? Or are we going to go get a guy that's going to change and be productive, and be an asset to our franchise?
So my opinion of that is, I think what's unfair is we're assuming Shedeur is going to react a certain way, act a certain way, that quite frankly, we have no idea. Just very similar. Like, we have no idea what really happened in these interviews with teams. Certain reports have come out and said one thing or the other. My retort, for example, for reportedly like the Giants and him had a interview, it didn't go so well. Maybe the argument is maybe Daboll and Joe Schroen said something that kind of rubbed Shedeur the wrong way, because maybe they were getting very similar to what your impersonation would be, and a sense of entitlement, and maybe they already came in there with that notion, and Shedeur Sanders is kind of now feeling attacked for, just because my dad's Dion doesn't mean that I didn't earn everything I got. Now, that's, again, we don't know. I'm just giving the argument of the other side of, what if in Shedeur's perspective, the Giants maybe came out at left field and then they walked out of it as like, well, he just didn't live up to our expectations. Well, that's but I can understand, like,
if
the
one team, sure. But when you have multiple teams kind of reporting the same thing, because I haven't heard any team come to his defense. Hey, when he interviewed with us, he was a pillar.
Well,
hey, I haven't heard
Sean Payton of the Denver Broncos said he's known Shedeur since he was in junior high, and he knows his work ethic. He is shocked that teams, for some reason, are deciding to do that. Now, it's no shock that teams will either reach for a player that they like, or a player who was high on a lot of draft analysts' boards continues to fall. That's not abnormal. I think what I find weird is Shedeur Sanders, basically in the middle of his college season, was potentially a number 1 or 2 quarterback to come off the board. He doesn't go until the 5th round. And we can both agree, and at least I will stand on this, and I think you will side with me just a little bit. There were certain quarterbacks taken ahead of Shedeur Sanders that, in terms of talent, probably not as good. But
the Saints pick was like, really? But again, you look at what Sean Payton said. Okay, I think the Jackson State Shedeur Sanders, that hungry, humble kid, I think he would have went higher in the draft. But you got a different Shedeur Sanders. You got an entitled nil money coming in, just insulting teams. I'm hearing that he was sandbagging guys. Like, I'm going to give a bad interview because I don't want to get drafted by these. Like who does that? And how you don't have your people, your dad, come to you and go, dude, don't do that stuff. This is the NFL. You will conduct yourself like they want to, because again, let's call it what it is. You're an African-American quarterback acting like a damn fool. The white guys up high with the money are not going to want to put up with that crap. And they showed it, because no owner wanted to deal with it early in the round. He still got picked. He still got picked by Cleveland. He still got picked by Cleveland.
He did. But
the second quarterback, they brought in Dylan Gabriel. So I think they there was a team out there that's like, hey, we really have to kind of take this guy, because if we don't, then they'll think something is really going on.
Well, he went in the fifth round. We were already thinking something was wrong after round 3.
Yep. And the NFL proves time and time again who's really in charge. Nobody's bigger than the shield. And that these owners will pick who they want. If they don't like who you are or what you are, they will let you know really quick. And unfortunately, this is that cautionary tale of, this is, I think some of this had to do with culture. And let's just call it what it is. I know it's a little more of a touchier subject getting into that, but I think this had to do with culture.
Sure.
So instead of him coming in and proving, the ivory tower wrong, you come in and solidify it with your attitude and the way you present yourself. Those owners are not going to put up with that in the NFL. And we've seen this before. We've seen it happen before.
I find it very interesting. Couple of points. One, I find it very interesting that the NFL has a bunch of these reported stories on their end of what might have caused Shedeur Sanders to fall, but yet there's nothing on Shedeur Sanders' side that's, showing anything. I just find it weird how it's the NFL doing they're really putting out whatever they can to kind of control. Sure, but I find that a little bit hypocritical on the NFL side, considering they will let a wife beater, they'll let a DV guy, they'll let a guy that has been accused of inappropriately touching and harassing masseuses. They will allow a lot of stuff, and they will allow them to play. NFL teams will fall over on themselves to sign these guys if they can change or help their franchise. But yet some kid from a dad who Hall of Famer, all-time great. Yes, he's got an attitude about him, but he backed it up. And if that is fearful of you because you are insecure about yourself because he believes in himself, I find that very hypocritical for the NFL to teach him a lesson. It's like,
I think that's part of the effect, though. I think, unfortunately,
but don't you think, though, that's a bit hypocritical, considering, like,
well, of course, the NFL is full of hypocrites.
Sure, and you
got rich white guys that own a team. They are hypocrites,
and they're worried about a 22, 23-year-old because he's got too much money. Okay, he comes from Deion Sanders. He's got to have money regardless if he's playing or not. But I think what's disingenuous too about labeling Shedeur as a guy that's been spoon-fed everything, I think, sure, he's got a dad that's got resources to get him the best of the best. You and I as parents, if we had the resources, we would do whatever we can for our family and kids to give them the best. No argument there.
Eli Manning with his 100%. Dad. I mean, what they did. I mean, there's no difference. So, like, I'm not even really using that as a crux of the argument.
No, I don't think you are either. But my point of it is like, I think Shedeur Sanders on the field, if he was really this entitled brat that didn't think that he needed to study, football will weed you out. I think we can agree on that. And the fact that Colorado went into a more competitive conference, I can't remember what conference they were. I think it was the Big Ten, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. They went into a more competitive conference. You would have thought Shedeur Sanders would have then hit a wall because these guys were, obviously a lot higher competition, bigger schools. And yet he had his best college season. My only argument is, look, I can understand if there's a sense of entitlement that you got to work through. You didn't want to deal with it. I get it. I think what I don't like is they are putting a label on him and we don't know what he's going to look like on the field. Because let's be honest, every single draft pick, regardless if it's the first draft pick or the irrelevant draft pick, is a 50-50 shot. We have no idea if they're going to make it or not. It depends on circumstances. Can they be, do they thrive under whatever system? So many other factors. So I will concede to this. Shedeur Sanders, whether he was the first pick, the fifth pick, whatever the pick is, he's either going to work out, he's not going to work out. There's no real gray area. He's either going to work or he's not. But
And I think that ultimately is going to either seal the deal of why he fell or show the NFL, well, we got egg on our face because, man, this kid has turned out to be something special.
Right, because I'm in the camp that, like, look, you don't have to like Shedeur. Again, you don't think he's a first-round pick. Second, third round, okay, I can make the understanding, sure, maybe personality got him. But to the fifth-round pick, and there's even a question in our group chat, does he even get drafted? Like, to me, that's such a big drop-off, all for a lesson, so to speak. And I'm not saying that all 32 teams conspire to, like, do all this and say, hey, we're not drafting him, you better not draft him, whatever. Just, there's also a lot of teams that have good quarterbacks that don't need a quarterback. And it just so happened that when Shedeur would come up, the only opportunity that he would get would be, Pittsburgh or the Saints or the Browns, the Raiders. My Raiders passed on him several times. So I'm acknowledging my Raiders are just as at fault of, like, look, if we wanted him, we should have gotten him. I'm in the camp that I just don't think Shedeur is a mere fifth-round talent. But I also don't like the fact of, like, the idea of Shedeur brought this on himself. That's why he's a fifth-round pick. I think it's a bunch of insecure white guys, to your credit, that are trying to control the narrative. And to me, that sounds weak on the NFL side. But I am rooting for Shedeur to prove people wrong because, look, if he doesn't work out, whatever, he's a fifth-round pick. But for some reason, and what's I think funny, and I hope you get a laugh out of this, if the Browns finally find their franchise guy from the fifth round, I think that'll be the funniest thing, because how many first-round picks have they spent on a franchise guy? Right. And really, it was a fifth-round throwaway pick.
Well, Tom Brady was the sixth pick. So, I mean, the greatest quarterback of all time was a high draft. I mean, so this was the NFL proving a point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot has to do with some of the things that are going on, like the Deshaun Watson issues. I think a lot of this stuff has been bubbling up over years. What has been going on in the NFL, and a lot of these owners, and you're talking about billions of dollars, involved, new stadiums. I'm here. Washington just got approved to build a new stadium on the side of RFK, so you're talking about billions of dollars of investment. And you look at someone like a Jaden Daniels, who just came in and set the world on fire here. Can Shedeur Sanders do that in Cleveland? I hope he can. But the way he presents himself and the way he acts is ultimately going to seal his fate. If he goes in there and studies and is a good teammate, and you hear positive things coming out of Cleveland, like, damn, maybe we were all wrong, I think that's going to prove, NFL, you got egg on your face. That you guys made the wrong choice. Whatever was going on, whatever you saw, you were wrong. But if he goes in there and acts a damn fool and does some of the things that he's been doing with this whole process of the draft, which I still kind of think is a little ridiculous with the draft process, and and some of these things that they have to do. They make these kids jump through hoops and the Wonderlic tests, and but I think Shedeur Sanders has a chance. He's on an NFL team. He's on an NFL team that doesn't have a really good quarterback. What are you going to do now? Are you going to prove the narrative wrong and show these guys up? Or are you going to set it in stone?
I really am rooting for him to come out on top of this, because that would be a great story. But
would be a phenomenal story.
Yeah, we'll find out, though. But Jason, that's the end of the show, man. I really appreciate you jumping on and giving me 2 hours of your time. I guess I had to pay you back from when I came on your show. You had to take 2 hours from me, but had a great time. Didn't even think it was 2 hours. So I appreciate it. So Jason, do me a favor, plug your show, plug where people can find it. And we'll go home from there.
Guys, 3 from Deep on the Boom Broadcasting Network. Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays. We drop at 12, but you could jump on Boom Broadcasting at any time. Everything is on demand. It's all free. We got a lot of great content, but yeah, you can catch me on that. 3 from deep. And then once football season rolls around, I got my man, the commissioner, Wayne Thomas. We do our fantasy football show, Sideline Savants, which I cannot wait for. We've had some dynasty drafts out there. I already did a couple dynasty drafts already. So I am pumped up for fantasy football too. But that's where you can catch me. Cody, it is always an awesome time to be on here with you, man. I love you. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for all your support. I'm glad to be on.
I appreciate you, Jason. I'll be talking to you in just a few minutes, man, but I appreciate you jumping on. Again, guys, go subscribe to the Boom Broadcast Network. Again, you can catch Jason's show 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Saturdays at 12. That is Eastern time, so if you're on the West Coast like I am, that's 9 a.m. So if you guys want a good NBA early morning show, go check it out. Yeah. Jason, I appreciate you, brother. All right, guys, that's it for Drew Code Sports Talk. I appreciate you guys so much for staying tuned for the episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast, like, subscribe, share, drop Jason a like in there as well. Drop him a comment whether you liked his remarks or his topics, and let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. And also, if you're listening to us on the audio side, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Google Cast, leave us a comment on there as well. We do appreciate it. I am Cody Johnson. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be kind to one another, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. So we will see.